Hello, our friends. It's us again.
It is us again.
Yes. And so, we just want to share again with you guys a little more info. Like, what happens to us is a lot of times we'll know that the guides are communicating with us through feelings of energy coming in through the crown chakra. It can be also a wave of all of a sudden feeling like you just got to lay down. And it first came to me decades ago, the realization of what it was when out of the blue, I would just have to go lay down. And then I would get these scenes, these pictures in the mind. And, it's messages again being relayed from the guides. So we putting this one up on EEARTS. We already talked about Putin surviving an assassination attempt over on Evolutionary, and then an important message from the guides on major incoming ascension energies that are hitting us. So these things all go hand in hand again. When we're getting a lot of upgrades and when things are really advancing on the consciousness side of things, then what happens is automatically there's a response from the controllers because they have to try to keep that part of things from manifesting quickly. And what do? They again, not only do they distract us by causing all sorts of situations and events that can lend to anxiety, lead to fear, lead to all sorts of lower vibrations. They will most definitely give us something else to focus on besides the spiritual.
Definitely. And now it's rather large. Please go check out Heartsoma as we put the entire message as far as how important these incoming energies are to everyone and how you can situate yourself so you can get that expansion when it comes to awakening. Please check those out. But yes, I mean, the name of the game for them is distraction. And as much as I hate playing certain games, I really like to deal with life on life's terms, but unfortunately, we're in a situation where these beings do find it gameplay. So they will do things like tinker with the computer. They will do things like mess with your tablet. And our energy bodies are becoming so much stronger. You might even notice that your phones are a little more glitchy. That's actually coming from the heart chakra because it is a very, very powerful chakra when it comes to reading energies external of yourself.
So this is from the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine, talking about heightened threat of missile attacks, including in Kiev and in Kiev Oblast. As what we are talking about is the response from Russia as what they took as a assassination attempt on Putin. Here you have Medvedev, who's been kind of the number two guy in Russia for a long time, calling for the elimination of Zelensky and his clique after drone attack. Outspoken former Russian president, current deputy chairman of the Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, had said on Wednesday in a post on social media that the overnight drone attack on the Kremlin has left Moscow with no options but to eliminate Ukrainian President Zelensky and his clique. Essentially, he's calling for a decapitation strike of the government in Kiev. As for Zelensky, he's vehemently denied his government was behind the attack, which Russia is asserting was an assassination attempt on Putin. So, again, we have that little video here where he's talking about it, saying, we didn't do it. We will leave it to a tribunal, a war crimes tribunal. Again, you have to recognize that it was just, was it 2018 that he was an actor? He still is. Again, this is the big reveal. People are waking up to what's really going on here and all this. Yet it doesn't mean people aren't dying. Of course they're dying. Of course they're dying. This is how this power structure rolls. And here you see breaking: Russia may launch missile strikes on Kiev tonight. 2 NUKE warheads allegedly at the airfield, but not armed on the plains at this time. Orders have been sent to the air bases in Engels and Shaikovka to prepare a number of Tu-22Ms for flight. Missile strikes could be carried out on a number of administrative buildings in Kiev during the night. The source also claimed that for the first time, NUKEs may be used. At least 2 items are already located at one of the aforementioned airfields. Now, again, the guides reiterated that that would not be allowed to happen. We've asked the guides in the past, well, what about what did happen with NUKESs? And it was, I guess something that caught them by surprise. It again, we are in a situation where the benevolent beings, they won't allow certain things, and some will say, why don't they stop it all? Because we are having this temporary human experience, and it's supposed to not be interfered with. That's the thing. It's all about not interfering with free will. And people will bring up questions about that, and then where is the dividing line? Because what happens is when NUKEs are used, they do literally rip into time, space, and affect other densities. When you look at our reality, it's as if we are in these thin layered realities where they're all flowing right next to each other. There's, as they were giving Cindy the visual of like the amniotic sac, where a baby's inside the amniotic sac, and it's completely necessary, to sustain the life of that baby inside that sac. And that's kind of how our reality is. There's a thin membrane, and, at the same time, when you detonate one of these type of weapons, they can rip that sac wide open and cause all sorts of havoc to beings that are not directly involved.
Mm-hmm. Well, the problem lies in when you're stacking densities. You have different densities, and one on top of another, you do have this protective sac. And when you tear that open, not only do things that are not supposed to go in, the things that are not supposed to go out, they go out. And this can cause a disruption when it comes to evolution. So Source, wanting to give us this experience, also gave us free will. With that free will comes certain energies that are going to want to do this and do that and come to a point where they can control everything. But we also have an energy source in this planet, and it's called agreements. So when these things happen, certain entities that are dark, that did cause it, come to a very quick understanding that, hey, this is not benefiting us either. So there has to be some agreement. So together we have the Galactic Federation, which has come together to do everything they can to see to it that this does not happen, at the same time allowing humans free will for us to have this very, very expansive experience. And a lot of people might not like that answer, but the truth is I don't have all the answers. I'm only being given a certain amount of information for us to have, for us to acknowledge, for us to utilize for this journey.
So, again, and this is the as above, so below. There's multiple universes, and again, there's so many different densities. And I think, when we look at a picture like this showing many different Earths, and they're all out there, this is really kind of how it is. So, yeah, there's all these different densities layered upon the other. Each one, there's different experiences being had. And yeah, that's why it won't be allowed to happen. But at the same time, and this is also where, if you want to just dive down into that flat earth theory, you can see that it doesn't hold weight, because again, everything is a reflection of the fact that we are living in a fractal universe. And yet, in effect, yeah, the holographic universe that we are in is a projection, but that projection is one in which you're looking at the shape, so to speak.
Right.
So again, and then when we could look at things at a cellular level, what do we see? Do they look square? No, they don't look square. No, they're, again, this is just the nature of existence. But while there may not be NUKESs released, they may very well, and we've said this many, many times, say that there have been.
Mm-hmm.
And there might be areas that go off, they're going to be, you're not going to have any human activity. That's part of the bigger picture too. Because again, there's going to be other beings arriving on this planet that they don't want people seeing at first.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to zone and cordon off certain areas one way or another. This is another part of that 15-minute city, the smart cities that are going to be in bubbles. Again, whether we realize it or not. Oh yeah, there is so much going on in this bigger picture.
Mm-hmm. Even take a baby and amniotic sac and realize that's spherical. That's spherical. As above, so below. There's so many examples of how things are above us and where we cannot see, and sometimes they're just too big to see. If you take a child out to an ocean or a wharf, they might walk up to this thing and it might look like a wall to them, but really if you just step back, it's a great big ship. So sometimes things are just simply too big for us to actually see, and that's kind of where we're at.
And they are going to be using new weaponry in this war that's ahead. So it's going to be like we haven't seen before. You've seen representations of these rods from God, which can absolutely mimic a nuclear strike in the type of damage that they do, yet it's not nuclear. And there's going to be an awful lot of space-based weaponry that's going to be used. And that's what they were showing Cindy, that they are going to be using stuff that is up there to mimic, the effects of, again, looking like we've had perhaps an NUKE exchange.
Right. When Mike was talking to me, he asked me if I could sense subs off the coast, and instantly they showed me, no, this whatever is going to come, it's going to come from space, and it is going to bury its way into the plates. It's going to disrupt those plates, and as Mother Earth, it's like when you slip and fall, automatically you reach out and you try to catch yourself. It's just a reflex. Well, automatically when these plates get disrupted, she's going to have to try to catch herself, and we can't be angry about that because she's just doing what any instinctual being would do. But they're causing problems in the sense where she has no choice but to react.
Absolutely. So again, just be prepared as best you can where you're at. As we've shared many times, the best places to be, from what the guides have said, is more towards the center of the U.S. If you're in the U.S., being not directly on the water is definitely good. We've gotten a couple of visions of that recently. And really, it's amazing how many people have had visions of tsunamis in their lives at this point in time. And even going back quite a ways, I remember my kids had the same, and that's one of the reasons why my daughter moved, so far inland, so she wouldn't be in the way of the waves, because she had that vision too at a very young age. So Putin's war hawks demand shoot down of plane carrying Zelensky. When Cindy was looking as to details before we actually saw this article from the Daily Beast, she was getting the impression of planes and of what looked like gray water. Now, it might not even be Zelensky, and again, we are told that Hitler committed suicide in his bunker, but the reality is no, he made his way to South America, and he lived actually many years after.
You know, when you get visions, it's the visions are not prejudiced. They really don't care what you're doing. And actually, when I got that vision, I was taking a tinkle, and I saw they showed me the two planes coming to the water, and they were generic planes. But the thing is that this is how visions work. They were trying to point out a concept. So the point is that they were being deliberately flushed into the water. They were being deliberately flown, or they were attacked, or they crashed. But it was the deliberate nature of the act is what they were pointing out to me.
Yeah. So again, it could be that we are told that certain people were killed in the downing of so and so planes, but the reality is maybe that never even happened. Or they weren't really on the plane in the first place, just like Hitler wasn't really, he didn't commit suicide in his bunker. So, again, it's just something to be aware of, because what they're doing is they're escalating. They're escalating the situation because, again, we are getting bombarded with so much energy coming from the sun and from other cosmic sources that are triggering our DNA. So left to our own natural way and progression, we would be advancing and we would be expanding our consciousness, and they cannot have that. Senate advances a bill to enhance Latin America's security cooperation. Again, now, this is the other thing that you should take and be aware of how close everything is to really kicking off in earnest. It's too late. It's too little too late. As we already know, there's been war games in Nicaragua. There's been, Iranian ships coming into the Caribbean. Yeah, and there's so many military sleeper cells already in place in the U.S. that the numbers are in 6 to 7 digits. It's all about to really kick off to a much higher degree. And the banking collapse of 2023 is now officially bigger than the banking collapse of 2008. Well, this is, of course, the GREAT. RESET. This is the biggie. This is the big one. So that should not surprise us. Again, what we got from the guides is this is just going to keep rolling on throughout the rest of this year. But it won't be completed this year. No. The completion is not until after the end of the war. So, the war brings these things into a different perspective, because again, what they really want is to see everybody living under the same sort of system we see in the fine dining ware country. Now, we could and should get over any differences we have. We should make nice. We should embrace, give a hug where it's needed, and make friends with your neighbors. If you find yourself in a situation that's making you anxious, maybe it's time to, visit your cousin in Kansas. Maybe it's time to visit your brother in Iowa, or whatever it is. Maybe there's family members in Bora Bora, or in some nice island somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. Each one of us is following a unique path. It could be that your path was to be right there at ground zero and helping people out throughout the chaos. That's where, again, being in touch with the higher self and really listening to your guides, because it could very well be that you chose a very, very difficult path for these times in order to challenge yourself and to see how you would handle the chaos.
Mm-hmm. And when you're clear and you have that spiritual practice and you are connected, you'll get those answers easier and quicker, and you'll have more confidence in the answers when you do ask. But that's what we have to do. We have to ask the question and be very open to how the information comes to us, because it cannot come in an interrupted way where it's going to interrupt our human experience, our human journey. But the information comes in a separate way. It comes like from the side. if it comes directly, I always am concerned. I'm like, that just doesn't seem right. But if it's coming from a different angle as not to interrupt your human experience, that's the number one rule of the cosmos. Do not interrupt ones, because it's not easy to come here and be a human, is it? It's tough. It is tough. So you wouldn't want somebody to come and tinker with that. So that's one of the first rules of the cosmos, is don't do that. But if you do ask, be open. Be open to how you receive information, because it can come to you indirectly. It can come to you secondhand.
As always, guys, thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Much love. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.